Welcome to the Brand Builder Show, another episode for you today. This is going to be a great episode. I'd probably say that every time, but this is going to be a really great episode. Fascinating for me because we are talking to Ryan Clark from Westbound Logistics, and he has founded this logistics company and have really built that over a number of years, and has fantastic insight into the world of global logistics. And the world of supply chain, global logistics over the last couple of years has been a pretty crazy one. And so being able to talk to him and ask him about how the whole process works, I think will be really insightful for you if you're a new seller, new to this industry. It will give you a lot of understanding about the end-to-end process of getting your products from your supplier to your Amazon warehouse or third-party logistics warehouse, and also just around the whole aspect of prices. Everyone knows that the world of shipping has gone up in price, and to be able to talk about that, what the market looks like moving forward, for me was, I think, really healthy conversation. So I'm sure you'll enjoy it too. So without further ado, let's jump into this conversation with Ryan Clark from Westbound. Awesome. Well, great to have Ryan on the show today with us. Ryan is one of the co-founders of Westbound Global Logistics. Ryan, great to have you on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
It's an exciting time in the world of shipping. Well, exciting is probably the wrong word, but it's a wild time in the world of shipping. So I thought it'd be great to get you on and talk about just the craziness of what's going on and what the future holds, and how sellers can try and optimize their shipping process. So we'll dive into that in a minute. Before we do that, just tell us a little bit about yourself for those people that don't know you. Probably the two Amazon sellers in the world that haven't seen you in the Amazon FBA groups on Facebook. Tell us a bit about yourself.
So a kind intro there. I'm one of the owners of Westbound Logistics Services. We started in the UK, privately owned business in 2009. Hence the name Westbound. We do specialise in goods moving from the east to the west. Mm-hmm. We run our own services by sea freight, LCL, which is less than container loads, every week from every main port in China to the UK and USA. In 2016, we opened up our very own British-owned offices in China as well, which is quite rare and unique for a British company to do that. Most people shy away from it, but we did that, took the step, and never looked back from there as well.
Yeah, nice.
So we're heavily involved in that market of importing products for numerous amounts of businesses in different sectors as well.
Yeah.
So high street, normal retail, wholesale businesses, but predominantly we've seen a big rise in e-commerce in general, but especially Amazon sellers as well, because it's so accessible and exciting to some, as you'll know, Ben, for people to get into.
Definitely.
So I first got involved in this area probably 4 years ago, maybe, roughly around then.
Uh-huh.
Just almost by accident, scouring different pages that I found interesting on Facebook, and actually seeing some poor advice from a lot of people. Some sellers passing on information that they thought was correct, and some other people calling themselves freight forwarders. And I just thought, oh my God, I obviously have a bit of an entrepreneur background myself, hence the reason why anyone would want to set out on their own, and I like seeing other people do well and make a success of themselves. So it was one of those moments where I just couldn't sit back and watch people possibly take a wrong turn, and logistics, in my opinion, is one of the fundamental things to get right. To get it wrong,
for sure,
you can not be profitable and you can fail.
Definitely, yeah, no, for sure. And I'd love to dig into that, sort of your approach to it, just for a little bit, because I think it is really interesting. Just by the way, for the record, anybody listening that can hear a jackhammer, somebody decided to dig up the road outside my house just as we started recording. So hopefully it doesn't come through too much, but apologies if it does. Anyway, talk to us a bit about Westbound, because it's actually how I found you was on Facebook a few years ago, because when I started selling on Amazon, I just started using a Chinese forwarder. It was just, that was all I knew, and it was like the easiest option. Seems like a lot of people were doing it. And then I found you guys, and the way you operated was, to me, so much more professional. The communication, the breakdown of how everything works. Like, you guys helped me learn about shipping and logistics as a seller, whereas before, just a Chinese forwarder would just say, it's going to be X amount of thousands, and it's done. Whereas you guys
Yeah.
kind of guided us through the process, and I find that super helpful. You talked about having offices in China. Like, what is it about all of that and the way you operate that's maybe different to freight forwarders that a lot of people are using?
Well, I think it's a good question, because sometimes I've answered this. I've tried to answer that question online in text, and I'm always a bit concerned that it comes across the wrong way, because I don't want to knock the Chinese and sort of, ring fence the whole of China and say, don't use those, they're rubbish. But as a nation, they're very, very good at what they do, and but the reason why somebody like us, not just us, but somebody like us that operates their own service at the destination, whether it's the UK you're importing into, or the US, mainland Europe, we're actually going to be, there isn't, I can't think of one single Chinese forwarder that operates their own service. And the reason why that is because the market is predominantly FOB. It's all about the Incoterms. So if you imagine most people in the UK are agreeing FOB terms with the supplier, that means the decision maker for that freight is in the UK. So then you've got salespeople going around on the road in China, and you've got salespeople for a forwarder in the UK. The decision makers are here. So then a freight forwarder here is going to be able to build up enough customer base, get them on board to support their company, and then therefore get enough cargo week in, week out, which takes years. So it takes years to build up so many. It's basically like having a cardboard box that you want to send from one destination to another, and you need enough envelopes to fill it. Otherwise, it's not going to pay you. Yeah. Exactly the same, but a container and pallets and bigger boxes. So unless you've got that amount of people committing to you from every single port, you're never going to run that service. So what the Chinese do is subcontract it to somebody like us. But the trouble is, it's not going to come straight to us. It's going to go to another Chinese company out there that's going to say, we operate weekly out of Shanghai to Felixstowe. This is our rate, come and use us. They'll take that booking, say from you, Ben, for example. Your cargo would get booked from your supplier to a Chinese forwarder, that Chinese forwarder possibly to another one. And then eventually it will find somebody like our China office, or back in the day, before 2016, a partner that we worked with. And then they would represent us, the actual end operator of that service, and it will get booked. So when you compare the services, what you probably would have found previously, just ask a simple question, has it left yet? And I don't know, how long did that take you to get an answer? Overnight, 48 hours? It's things like that where we can tap into our system and go, yes, left. And or you won't need to ask, because when you get a notice of arrival from us or a confirmation of booking, we've got our own bespoke built system where it's got a link to tracking, and you can actually click it and see, a Google map pop up with a little blue Westbound ship, and you can actually see exactly where it is by GPS. So that just falls in line with where we're going now. E-commerce businesses like yourself, you're probably working through the night like everybody else. And when people are starting out that aren't fully full time yet, you want answers quickly, and you want it out of hours. So we try to help that. That's really the difference between the two. It's not that they're bad at their job, or it's just that they can't give you the same service if they're not actually in control of it all.
No, for sure. And you mentioned that you have your own LCL service. So does that mean that you work with someone that moves a container each week, and you have a portion of that container, or how does that? I just find it fascinating how it all, the end-to-end process of how it works.
Yeah, it's not that it's not that exciting, but I suppose when you don't know, so if you had enough cargo to load a full container, you'd book a full container. That's referred to in the industry as an FCL. So full container load. The LCL is, we're actually doing exactly the same as booking an FCL in the background. So we would commit to that, whether we fill it or not. That's our gamble and that's our risk. And kind of stepping back to the previous conversation that we started with, you can only do that if you're really confident that you have enough customers every week in, week out, every port. So we do that. We book at least 2 to 3 containers every week, 40-foot high cubes. Shanghai, Ningbo, Shenzhen, Qingdao are the main 4. So they're in position. We will we will send our trucker to go and get the empty container from the port, bring it to our warehouse, and all throughout the week we're loading up LCL until it gets to a certain point. Right, we're on 58, 62 cubic meters. That's one done. The next lot's coming in, and on load day, we literally load those containers up. We manifest it all. It all goes through customs, export declarations. Doors are shut. Seal goes on. That seal goes on our bill of lading, and that's it. That is our LCL consolidation. So it's that container as a whole is completely down to Westbound. We've booked it. We are in control of it. We are the last persons to close those doors, and we're the next persons to open them as soon as they arrive in the Felix Day. That's again describing what your own service looks like as a freight forwarder. More chance of finding one of those in the UK than China.
Yeah, for sure. And then from like an FOB perspective, so if anybody's listening, they're kind of new to the whole process. FOB, your supplier would, be responsible for getting it on the boat. At what point do you guys communicate, exchange, take over? How does that work?
Yeah, that's another a really good point actually. Incoterms are so confusing to people when starting out and what it actually means. And I've got the easiest way to describe it is 99.9% of the time, if you booked a shipment with us and it was X works, we will pick it up. We're going to pick it up straight from the start. But if you book it FOB, 99.9%, we're still going to pick it up. We're still going to pick it up from your factory and be in control of that shipment from day one. The difference of what the Incoterms means is who's paying for that each section. So let's run through an example. You book 5 pallets with us, FOB Shanghai. Our office out there would get the booking form from us in the UK. We'd load it in the system and it would just come through automatically the other side. They get the details, especially if it's not the first job. They know your supplier by now. They know who to call. They'll call your colleague John in Shanghai and say, right, we've got another shipment for Ben. It's 5 pallets. When's it ready? They discuss it all locally. They sort all that. They do all the correspondence for you, checking on whether it tallies up with your ready date of when you think it's ready. We will arrange to pick that up, but because it's FOB, your supplier's got the choice to say, actually, no, I don't want to pay you for getting it to you. I've actually got my own truck. I'm going to bring it to you. And that's the difference. So as FOB, the supplier has the option to do that element themselves. If they choose to use us, then they're going to pay us for that, not you. So that's what Incoterms are. It's describing who pays for what part of the shipping and where.
No, that's good. And it's similar, same process whether it's going to the UK, America, mainland Europe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and a lot of people make the mistake as well of where that is so confusing at the start is they come onto a freight forwarder or a shipping company and say, can I have a DDP quote? That terminology is actually impossible to do because a freight forwarder doesn't make the terms. You do with your supplier. So there's no such thing as asking a forwarder at destination for a DDP quote because that means you're buying the goods delivered, duty paid. Well, therefore, I'm not needed because you've just bought the goods. If your true Incoterms are DDP, that means you don't need to be talking to us because you've already paid a certain amount within your commercial invoice value for those wall brackets or whatever you're bringing in. That's been inflated by 50 cents each to cover the shipping and the duty, and so the supplier's taking care of it. You're not in control. But I think what people mean is what they probably mean is, okay, I'm buying FOB, so I'd like a shipping price to include everything to door. That's what I think people mean.
But let's talk about that though, because people do, especially new sellers, they can fall into that trap of DDP and what that looks like. People think, especially VAT, duties, all that kind of stuff. It's so murky. Clear it up for us. Someone orders some products from China, DDP, and it's it includes VAT apparently, all that kind of stuff. What's the situation there?
It's something that we advise against for a very good reason. And there might be people watching going, of course you would. You're a freight forwarder, so you want the business. Yeah, there is that. But if I retired tomorrow, I'd probably still jump on Facebook and tell people, don't do that. use our rivals. Then I'll give you a name. Just do not book DDP, and that is because, let's go to the wall bracket scenario. You're buying a container or 5 pallets of wall brackets or glass jars. Instead of $1 each, you're going to pay $1.50 each. As an example, that extra 50 cents is your supplier taking the extra margin to pay their chosen freight forwarder, and they're going to instruct them of what to declare to the local customs in the UK. They're not going to. 99%, they're not going to do that. Yeah. They're going to, instead of you know, that's $5,000 worth of jars, they're going to declare it as 1,000, and they're not going to pay the correct duty. And you think, well, that's their problem. It's not my problem. It is. It's a real messed up situation. But you're the importer and the purchaser of those goods, and customs deem you responsible. And no matter what anyone says, you've got, that can't be right. It is right. We've seen it, and I've warned against it. And it's the same in US, in every country. So customs can come back to you up to 6 years later and uncover nightmare scenarios like that and say, you have been in control of this shipment, you as the importer, even though it was DDP, and you didn't make sure that and follow up that has been the correct amount declared to us, therefore you owe us the difference, and there's a fine as well. So we have a real good blue chip customer that ships to the UK and the US with us. They know what to do. I mean, they've gone from, I can't name their name, but they've gone in the last 5 years to the Forbes 100 list. Wow. For one of the fastest. They're Amazon seller as well, but they started just on e-commerce, but they then moved into Amazon, and that just doubled and almost tripled their turnover. They're up to last year there was 55 million turnover. They're going for 85 now. Wow. I mean, they're just non-stop. And I could touch on that later if you want. Some of their philosophies that they feed back to us of why they're successful in Amazon. But where's the name of that? The DDP. So they know what they're doing. They ship FOB all the time, just like every other high street retail major successful store does. But they had smaller actual parcel sizes that we didn't get involved with. We don't need to. So they'll book it with a supplier. It all went DDP, but they moved so many of them. They got $50,000 fine and repayments of, I think it was $1 million US dollars. I've got a screenshot. If you go back far enough on our Facebook page on Westbound Logistics, you'll find it. I'll try and dig it out for you if you want, but I've covered their name up and I've shared it for people. Look, this is what can happen.
Crazy.
But it's not just that risk. DDP terms, it's the big sort of scary part of having something misdeclared when you're responsible, but it's also, you're not actually in control. Yeah. You don't legally own those goods until that passes to you, and that's what Incoterms do as well. It says who's responsible for these goods at what point, not just the money in terms of paying for it. So this is probably more sort of scary and realistic in the sea freight and air freight world rather than a smaller parcel. So the risk grows. So if you've got a full container load and you're moving it DUP, people do. They do that because it's easier and they know what they're doing. They move thousands. My supplier, people convince themselves that their supplier is the best freight forwarder in the world. But what can happen, and we've seen happen, that people don't really fathom this risk, is, let's say that your supplier is now the customer of the shipping line or another freight forwarder. Your supplier hasn't paid the bill, maybe, in this scenario, to the freight forwarder, and your supplier gets into financial trouble and they go bust. Those goods that you paid for are not legally yours yet on DDP terms because it hasn't transferred into your ownership at arrival on delivery. So with 30, 40, 45 days on the water, that is a risk, because if something happens to your supplier in that period, lots of people are going to come in and take a lien, which is LIEN. They're going to take a lien on your goods legally, which they can do as salvage, because they're not yours, they're the suppliers. that supplier owes them money. They're going to take that and they're going to salvage them somewhere. And all of a sudden you'll think, well, that's not right. It's going to probably cost you the value of those goods to legally untrangle that and get your money back. So either way, you've lost, and that does happen.
Yeah,
so that's a
scary.
big risk factor for me. If I wasn't in this business, knowing what I know now from this side of the fence, if I was importing, I would never ever touch DDP with a barge pole. I just think I've bought those goods from Shanghai. I want them legally mined from the minute they leave their premises. That's what I would aim for.
Yeah, which is FOB.
Yeah.
That's good.
FOB or X Works, but X Works you can negotiate better as FOB because you should be a valuable customer to your supplier in China, and the difference between X Works is black and white. You're paying for it from the door, but FOB, you've got a little small window there of where they will uplift your price per SKU slightly. Yeah. But normally it's in your favour. So they'll take a guess. They'll go, we know what the rough charges are. We'll build that in. And sometimes if they've got their own vehicles, they can save a bit of money. So it is better. And plus it's less time for an importer to worry about quotes. So for instance, for us, we can issue a tariff that's nice and easy, FOB to door, all in. That is, and you go on our system. It's like a mortgage tracker. As soon as the rate changes, so does our rates. They automatically ping out to every customer. You never have to contact us for rates to check what's this one, what's that one, because we don't have to go out to China and say, what's the tracking for, this time it's 100 kilos more, what's the difference, what's the zip code? Just, it's so much more efficient. So that's the way to go.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. You mentioned that big brand. I would love to hear more about that as much as you obviously can. But, in terms of, yes, what you've said, they fed back to you, but also their logistics strategy, like what are some things that they're doing at that scale? Firstly, just out of interest, because there may not be many people listening that would implement maybe some of the strategies, but just out of interest, like what does that look like? Do they, is it like several shipments a week, full container loads? How are they doing that? But yeah, also their strategies and stuff. Talk to us a bit that you've gleaned from them.
Well, when I get the chance to go into depth, and again, it's not like this, but not really so much on text because it would just be too mind-boggling, I think, for people to read through. But this is actually what I base it on, this customer, and what I've learned. So you could teach me everything that I would possibly need to know about selling on Amazon. But freight-wise, from what they've told us from their side, it totally makes sense. So I understand from in your world, Ben, going out of stock is disastrous, right?
Yeah.
That's what they said to us. That is for them, that's the biggest no-no because their ranking just gets annihilated. So it takes them years, months and years to get where they've got a number one position in all their SKUs, and they must never, ever, at all costs, even if they had to air freight something over, never go out of stock because that's what they believe is got them their success. So off the back of that, their logistics plan is to help them never going out of stock. They've got, whether you're starting small, which you should, and build up, the strategy is still the same. Ship from China to destination, but more so now, there's restrictions on what's allowed in Amazon. Well, they've always brought in much, much more than what Amazon could ever cope with. Even if they were allowed to store more in there, they wouldn't because, our 3PL in both UK and Los Angeles actually charges less rent than Amazon anyway. So they've always used us as a pit stop. So this works with other 3PLs as well. It's not an advert for Westbound. Whatever, if somebody adopts this strategy, it's a good one. So find a 3PL, ideally a forwarder that's offering both, because that way your goods don't have to transition and get an extra delivery charge out before it comes back in. So we would unpack the container in the center where we store it for them. We've got about 4,000 pallets for these guys, just hundreds of SKUs stored, and then they call it off from there. So when they go low in Amazon, they call it off from us, and then when they go low in us, they call it off from China. So it's a constant conveyor belt with a two-stop process. China, fulfillment center, Amazon. And that's how they work it. It's quite simple when you break it down like that. but
Yeah.
it's hard to describe otherwise unless I was kind of doing this and talking on screen. But
Yeah. No, that's good. Good. Yeah, good stuff. Okay. And then talk to us about the the question that everyone's asking, prices. It's probably your least favorite question right now for the last couple of years, but
yeah,
it's pretty
yeah,
wild,
it
hey?
certainly is. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, usually you can predict. I mean, I'm quite proud of the fact that over the last 12 years and plus, because I've not been in the business a lot longer than that as well, but for 12 years I've been analysing and predicting, and I've got to say quite big-headedly got almost everything bang on, and even when other people haven't, I called it differently and I was right. This is just, I've got so much wrong. I've got everybody's getting everything wrong. You just can't predict. You need a crystal ball. I mean, when was it last year? We when we saw the rates start to ease off a bit, where even in the UK we touched $20,000 for a 40 foot. That started to come down again, and then it was almost like if you're British and watching this at the moment, you'll get this, but Ant and Dec kind of coming on a mic in the background going, now block the Suez Canal. It was almost like a this has got to be a wind up, surely.
Yeah.
And just as we start to make ground on rates, and we see a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel, that happened, and then just the demand is being messed up. As to when they're going to change, I don't know. Chinese New Year has always been mine and many other freight forwarders and seasoned importers' prediction to be that's got to be the circuit breaker that we need, and it has to. It's going to be a different rate after Chinese New Year. It has to be. It cannot stay where it is now, because the demand will drop. Factories are they should be empty. They all like to be empty going into Chinese New Year. That means that everyone's got their stock out before they should be, and therefore there isn't going to be so much demand for containers or vessel space after Chinese New Year. Not only that, but you've got average of 30 days lead time for new products. So you've got that to contend with. There shouldn't be a big tap that turns straight on again, like a fire hydrant hose after Chinese New Year. It should trickle, and that's what we're really after, to see a rate change. But I think the question is how much difference are we going to see between now and post Chinese New Year? And I don't think it's going to be the big drop that I once predicted even a month ago. I said I can see this being, instead of 16,000, I think it's going to be around 10,000. I don't think it is. I don't think it's going to drop that low that quick.
I know it's a crystal ball question, but long term, should we not have any more global plagues or anything ridiculous? Like, do you see it, like, where do you see it stabilizing? Is that too hard to predict? What are your thoughts there?
I mean, take it with a pinch of salt, because it really is an opinion, really. But I previously said, and I would probably hang my hat on this still, I think the future, when it stabilizes, I think the new rate levels, as opposed to pre-pandemic, the rate levels that fluctuated throughout a year would be anything from $800 to $2,000 from a low and a high. And that's painful for people to hear now, but I think the new bracket is going to be $6,000 to $10,000. I think that is going to end up being the stable fluctuation between a full load rate. But I don't think we're going to get 6,000 this year. I've been getting feedback from shipping lines this week, some of them saying that they don't see that there's going to be a change since Chinese New Year next year. And there's part of my head that just, I don't know whether I'm refusing to believe that because I don't want to believe it, or whether they've got a point. What do they know that I don't? They're on the front line. Are they saying that to, manage expectations further down the line through a forwarder and then to importers like yourself and your viewers? I don't know. I don't think it's going to be. I'd like to think it's not going to be another year of $16,000 to $20,000 a container.
Yeah.
I'm hoping for. I'm not. I think hoping for a miracle is no good. So being realistic, I would recommend to anyone doing their sums to base that between a conservative 10k container being best scenario and 15 to 16 being the worst.
And what does that work out to? I know I'm putting you on the spot with numbers, but in terms of like a per cubic meter, how do you guys work up price? Obviously, there's lots to factor in, but say if someone's reading the news and they're like, "Oh, container prices are 10k," is there an easy way to work out? Well, that's roughly X amount per cubic meter if I'm doing LCL.
From our point of view, we don't like to change the rates too much because we like to try and give some stability, and that means sometimes we take the rough with the smooth. So sometimes we've not covered ourselves so well, and other times we'll make up for it. From that can be 1 week to the next. So what we tried to do is give a month validity, which you can't do on full loads. So on LCL, we'll look at it, we'll take it as a view as, we'll use you again, Ben. So if you're using us every week with a shipment, or even once a month, it's not going to be the same time every month. It's not going to be the same rate every month. We know that we can kind of ride through week by week and fill a container. So we'd average that out, and at the moment, another telltale sign actually of who's actually running their own service is whether you get a freight rate broken down in dollars, and then document charge, clearance charge, import security, a long list of charges, or whether you get an all-in sterling rate. So we do ours all-in to make it easier. So say £349 a cubic metre, all-in from FOB to door, delivered Amazon. That way it's easier for us, it's more efficient for us to work through and do invoicing, but it's actually much easier for importers to work out what their landed cost is. You just what your packed total cubic metre size is, just times that by 349, and if it's under our minimum, I'd use the minimum, and if it's over that, just times it by the cube. But you can get a rough calculation, because in that 349, if you in a 40-foot high cube, you can actually get 68 cube in, but you're never going to do that unless it was matchboxes. So we try to work off of 60 cube, do that by 349. You're I don't know what I've done there. I've done that wrong. 349. Yeah, you've got a lot of charges there that are built into the UK charges as well. So you can kind of roughly work out what it is per cube. If it shoots up to 20, in line with that ratio, it's going to go up.
Yeah, and you guys, like you say, you have like a weekly rate email that people can subscribe to. So if people are already on FOB terms, or they want to or should change to FOB if they've got regular sea freight, then it's just so much easier. So they can, even if they're using this at the moment, if someone's watching this and you think, I didn't know you did that, get in touch. Drop the guys a line on Amazon at westboundglobal.com. Say, hey, I'm I'm already using you for a few jobs in the past. To save me getting quotes, I'm buying on FOB terms from China. Can I just go on a tariff? We'll load you on our tariff system, and you'll get automatic rate updates whenever it changes. So there'll be a validity point. So now if you locked in, it will be valid to another 10 days. It'll be the end of January. 1st of Feb, you'll get another update. Even if the rates haven't changed, they'll automatically issue and get sent out. If there is a change, normally we validate it for the longest period that we can as a worst case. But the great thing about that is, because it is linked to a tracker of our costs on the full load, if, say, on the 4th of Feb or the 7th of Feb, rates drop on the full load, those would automatically trigger out and adjust to your LCL rates. So you think, oh, that's good news. I've actually ordered something to leave on the 15th of Feb, but that means I'm going to get it £200 cheaper now. Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, definitely recommend people signing up to that then. Last question, just on prices, just so again, just trying to help people understand like the whole shipping climate. These prices obviously have gone crazy, and I know there's so much behind it. But if you could kind of like summarize the, say in 2 minutes, what is behind all of these huge price increases? What do you put it down to?
Right, I'll go for the brief version.
Yeah.
it, imagine imagine a hose pipe that's actually connected itself together, and it's full of water. So it's just circular motion going around. That's the supply chain. If we go back to March 20, when the pandemic hit, somebody's got that hose pipe and they've gone like that and made a kink in it. And now, if you imagine what happens to that hose pipe, there's a bulge building up at the other side like this and nothing coming through. So this is destination UK, if you like. And you can apply this to the US, wherever you are. It's the same principle. So there's this big bulge that's building. That's all the containers and all the vessels that are building up. They've got nowhere to go. Everybody's shut down and cancelled their orders and postponed them. This bulge all of a sudden gets released when governments around the world said, okay, in June, we're going to start opening up. Panic. Right, get those orders back on. Everything, go, 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 go. Let go of that kink in the hose pipe, and all of a sudden this bulge, it's like a clot, like a blood clot. It hasn't disintegrated. It's moving around like this. So it's going to take ages and ages for that to get smaller and smaller and actually disintegrate back into a normal supply chain. So that what that bulge represents is all of the containers not moving. When the vessels weren't moving on shutdown, then of course no empties were going back. So because there was no empty containers going back, everyone turned on that massive fire hydrant of a hose to say, orders, get them out of China, get them in. Every single empty container's full, gone. There's no more left. So then prices go up. Right, if you want this container, you got to pay that. Or shipping lines have all of a sudden gone, this is good. We'll stick another $1,000 on that. Oh my God, they're still buying it. Go again, another $1,000. Jesus, they're looking over their shoulder thinking, they're still paying it. So they've just kept on going and going and going and going. And, I wouldn't be surprised if a 20,000 vessel was just about to come on board. No, hold that back. No, don't do that. Don't bring that into the loop, because we're actually making money for once. And to be fair to them, they've lost money on that trade lane for years and years. But my God, this is a hell of a difference now. That's in a nutshell what's happened, and that's still happening. So again, going back to the Suez Canal, when that bulge starts to ease off, Suez Canal blockage, it hit. Now again, no containers coming back, massive shortage, and it's just an ever revolving problem. So it's going to take quite a while. Excuse me. For that to even out and get back to normal.
If it ever does.
It will do. It will take quite a long time. It's going to need, next year, and this is the shipping line's reasoning for that comment earlier, saying that next year they see it easing up, because that's when, some more super vessels are coming on board. Another 22,000 container vessel times 10. If that comes into the equation, then you're going to have shipping lines fighting over market share again, and that is a good thing for importers, because that's when the rates get competitive.
Yeah, can't wait for that.
No, not me.
Yeah. Have you ever been on one of those?
Yeah.
I bet that's an experience.
It's an eye opener. Yeah, huge, absolutely huge. Yeah. It was, we went on a tour on one of the I think it was the Maersk Emma.
Okay.
If you look that up, it's one of the largest super vessels. It was at London Gateway Port. So when our offices was based down there a couple of years ago, we did a tour, and it was it's huge, quite scary going up the top as well, very high.
Yeah, I've seen a video of a guy on one of the cranes, and he kind of like puts the camera down all the way down into the belly of it, and it's just insane. You think about the containers on top, but you forget that there's just as many underneath as well. It's just crazy. Yeah,
we did that too. We went up one of the key cranes and looked down on a glass bottom. That's quite a hairy moment, but yeah, very skilled, very very clever how they get those containers off, and it's no wonder. Again, people probably don't realise it takes 24 hours to get your average average amount of offloaded containers from a stop on the ground. So even when people are looking to go, it's in. When can I have my delivery? The vessel's in, but your container might be at the bottom. We don't know. That might be off in another day, and then it's got a customs clear. And
no, for sure. No, that's awesome. Listen, I know you're super busy, so I don't want to take up loads of your time, but this has been, for me, massively insightful, and I know for people listening, that may be a bit newer or just don't understand shipping as much, just there's lots of insight there, and, hopefully a little bit of optimism about where we're going in the future. I just thought it'd be cool just to finish with, I don't know if you have any, but just if you have any, like, crazy stories about shipping, like containers lost at sea, something crazy that you've shipped. I don't know, some huge fine. I just like some crazy story from shipping. Surely there'd be something over the years that you've experienced and thought that was absolutely mental.
It's quite a boring industry, Ben. It's not... I'm struggling, I must admit.
if there's nothing, that's fine, But I just, I don't know, maybe like a shipment of live animals or something. But
no, never live animals. No, we're not in that sector, thankfully.
No, that's all good. No, that's good. I mean, that's good to know in a way that there's no crazy stories, because it's it helps us all sleep at night a bit if there's nothing terrible happening out there. It's good.
Yeah, nothing too major. I think that most of what we've seen on the news anyway. There's been a few vessel fires. There's been the one Opus that a year or two ago that it does happen. Get your insurance in place, or use your forwarder's insurance. Take it out, all risk marine insurance, because it does happen.
How often would you get containers overboard?
Thankfully, touch wood, not that often, but not for us. So the chances of one particular forwarder or an importer experiencing it or even hearing about it is rare. But the amount of time it does happen is a lot. At least once a week, there's containers going overboard. That's the stats.
Wow.
Yeah, loads. Absolutely. Wow. Yeah, hundreds will probably be in the seabed somewhere.
Wow.
Across the Atlantic and the Pacific.
Yeah.
So when you think about it, any freight forwarder that you use, whether it's in China or UK or US at your destination, never rely on the standard terms and conditions of your bill of lading. It doesn't cover you. It covers you for 33 pence per kilo. So if you times that by how many kilos and what you've actually paid for it, just always pay the insurance. It's like minimum £35. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah, for sure. No, I definitely recommend that. Definitely. Awesome. That's good to know. Where can people find out more about Westbound if they want to hear and get in touch?
Follow our social pages, because we do release some tips, and hopefully we'll do some more on our. That's generally Westbound Global or Westbound Logistics, depending on what platform you're on. Shouldn't be too hard to find us. Our website is westboundglobal.com, and on there we have actually got a specific Amazon help section. So we're always trying to add to that, to tailor for startups, people that have not really had too much experience in shipping before. So we're hopefully going to be adding to that as well. So keep an eye on that. There's a couple of videos as well to talk through it opens up on the page of what to expect when importing from China for the first time. That's quite a good one, and it's only a couple of minutes long.
Good. Yeah, that sounds good.
And if there's a quote request on there as well. A lot of people email us, which you can, Amazon at westboundglobal.com, or even, I would say the best way to ensure that we've got all of the details that we need to say coming backwards and saying, oh, we need that, and now we need that. There's actually a quote form online, a dedicated page. Soon we'll hopefully add some instant rates on there as well, so that's another one to keep an eye out for.
Yeah, that'd be really helpful. Yeah, great. Awesome. Well, highly recommend everyone checks that out and checks you guys. Fantastic service. Always got brilliant service from Westbound. So thanks for coming on the show today, Ryan. Really appreciate your insight, and hopefully some better days and cheaper prices ahead.
Yeah, hope so. It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
What an episode that was with Ryan Clark. Honestly, I love that guy. He's just such good insight and so down to earth and, super, super helpful. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, I would love it if you took just 2 minutes to leave us a review on iTunes or Spotify, or subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Hit that like button. Let people know that there is this helpful content out there. The Brand Builder Show keeps moving on forward, baby. We've got some more great guests coming up for you in the weeks to come, so make sure you look out for those, and I'll see you in the next episode real soon.